Welcome back, everyone, to the Tuesday episode of Getting Defensive, our First Take Tuesdays, brought to you by GridironRatings.com. With me, as always, are Gary, the IDP tipster. Gary, how is your night going so far?
Oh, it's going great.
And we have James as well. James, how's your Tuesday going for you?
It's probably going a little worse than Gary's. Still not over losing every single one of my leagues this past week. So we're week 7.
Out of 8, I only lost 1.
I mean, it's 0 for 4.
I crap my pants. That hadn't happened. Craig's doing really well. And at least that one league, one of those IDP leagues we're in together, Craig's killing it.
I think I'm in 2 of them. One of them's free through Sleeper, and one of them's in my fantasy league. And I have either 1 or 2 losses in both of them. I've had my first loss in one of them this week.
Yeah, I'm still sitting above 500 on 3 out of my 4, but this past week was not pretty.
Yeah, I think that my head's above water pretty much across the board. Maybe 1. I think I might be like 2 and 3. I'm dying in the Scott Fish Bowl. I'm dead in the water. I'm treading. I'm bowling. It did not work out whatsoever. I lost Russell Wilson. He didn't come back. Had a couple nice pickups, but terrible. But that's all right. My money leagues are doing good. I'm in contention. I can. That's the nice thing about it. We got a long ways to go, but we ain't gonna start. We got another 6-7 weeks before playoffs even start. Really.
Yep. A lot of time left to get stuff sorted out here.
Yeah.
And got a little surprise for Gary tonight as we're, sitting about 5 or 6 days out from Halloween. 'Tis the season for trick-or-treating. Thought we'd switch it up, and we're going to go all offensive on tonight's show for Gary for Halloween. Gary, how you feeling about Deshaun Watson?
No.
I'm just kidding. I wouldn't do that to you.
Don't do that, man. It's not even funny.
I hope my faux cheers in the background really tricked Gary there.
It was worth a shot.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're going to be getting
all
into
orange on, but it ain't no Halloween gimmick here, man.
We're going to get into injuries, waivers, people of interest potentially, and all that. But James, you're going to be telling us about might be time to sell for some of us, apparently, eh?
Yeah, it's in stark contrast to what Gary said a few seconds ago about we still have a long ways to go with this season. But for a few teams in your league, you don't. Now, it's time to sell. If you're a redraft person only, that's the only leagues that you dabble in. You can ignore my diatribe this week. But for Dynasty fellas, someone in your league needs to sell. Might not be you specifically, but there is a team right now that thinks they can right the ship, and they can't. They're done. It's time to sell. And the first team to sell in your league is always the one that sets the market, and generally they set the market high because buyers are trying to buy, and the first one to buy gives the most up. It's a general overarching league comment, but it usually rings true. So if you're sitting there with maybe 2 wins, but you feel like you could have 4, entertain this idea. I know you don't want to. No one ever wants to admit it's time to be defeated, but you have to. I've got my one team where I'm massively under 500. I only have 1 win. I'm probably 4th or 5th in the league in points out of 12, but I'm dead last. I need to sell, and I'm going to start selling this week, and I don't want to. My team's better than that. It's a playoff-eligible team that could go on a run, but reality is here for all of us, whether we want to admit it or not. So if you need to sell, I'm just telling you it's time to sell. For 11 out of your 12 teams, it's not time to sell, but there's one person who goes, I think we could come back, and you're just not playing the odds right. You have better odds of selling today and reaping the rewards next year and winning next year than you actually do of winning this year. And the first person in your league to admit that usually gets the most reward for their admission. So at least consider selling. Please just think about it if things haven't gone your way this year.
We lost you, Craig.
Craig's audio has died.
Yeah.
And
Spooky.
he is back for
I
a
am back.
special assignment.
Time to sell that microphone.
Yeah. I hit the button and didn't turn it back on. James, I was wondering, when you're doing this for like a 1 year sort of for your team, are you looking more to do a soft reset and just sell 1 or 2 players? And is that anyone's on the table for you, or are you still hanging on to guys unless you get completely blown away?
Specifically right now, I think this is the best time to sell your beast assets, your best assets, the kings of kings. I know lots of people never want to trade those guys, but if you're going to entertain it, now is the time. There are plenty of buyers. You throw some dirty-o guy like Derrick Henry on the block on your 2 and 5 team, well, people are going to listen, and you're going to get offered a haul. Maybe it's the right haul to take, maybe it's not, but now is the time to make that trade if you're ever going to make it. If you wait until week 13 or week 14, you're not going to get nearly as much in return because your fellow teams are either A, going to already have acquired what they want to acquire, or B, they're going to say, well, you can't have them bid against anyone else because everyone else has bid. So you generally want to sell today if you need to sell and you weren't planning on selling to start, because the second you fall behind someone else in your league who sells, you're just that far behind, and it makes it harder and harder. And it's all about being decisive. You need to decide, should I sell or should I not sell? And if you change your mind in 3 weeks, you made the wrong decision tenfold.
Yeah, and the NFL trade deadline, I think, expires in a week here. And most leagues usually have trade deadlines too. So you got to be cognizant of that. Maybe that's coming up in 5 weeks in your league. I know very few leagues don't have any trade deadline, but be cognizant of that too. That way you know how much time you have to make a move if you're looking to make one. Gary, any thoughts on selling guys at this point in the year if your team's just not going the way you want?
No, I think you guys pretty well covered that. Talking dynasty leagues, it's time to make a decision.
All righty. Well, moving on, as we let you guys know prior weeks, we'll know that now too. Baltimore and Las Vegas are the only 2 teams on bye this week, so hopefully you don't have too many bye issues this week. But injuries continue to mount up as we've seen week after week here. 3 of these sort of stood out to me looking through everything. Jaquiski Tart is going to be likely out for a few weeks, starting safety for the Rams. And it looks like, according to the coach anyway, however much you take faith in what Kyle Shanahan tells you week to week, that Talanoa Hufanga is going to be taking over, rookie out of USC. We also have Christian Kirksey, who may not miss any time, but he did fracture his thumb, it sounds like. Along those lines, too, Jerome Baker left this game with a knee injury. They did an MRI, and it came back clean, so they're thinking he may play this upcoming week. But someone that won't be playing, Jabril Peppers, we talked about a few times on this show. He is now going to be out for the year. That's the one I sort of wanted to talk to you guys most about, but feel free to chime in on any of these. Julian Love had filled in previously and seems likely to be next in line for any increased snaps that Peppers normally would have had. And Love, in some spot starts in the past 2 years, had some utility sort of as maybe a deeper league defensive back. But do you guys have any interest in him as the kind of sort of the third safety there with the Giants? Gary, I'll ask you first.
Not right away.
He's worth keeping an eye on for you?
Definitely. I don't think he's an instant ad right now unless you're in a really deep format.
Right.
You need to see something. My golden rule is I usually, when I'm doing my waiver wires for, Gridiron Ratings members, there's a couple things I keep in mind. I never give them or add anybody to the list that doesn't have a solid or strong matchup the coming, because I see it all the time. People will be suggesting somebody because, well, say just like Kenny Young or something. So he might be a viable play this weekend, but is the matchup actually really good? Is he going to hit his ceiling? Is he going to get above his averages? What's his odds? If it's a weak matchup on paper, then I don't like suggesting those guys. I'd soon wait a week and then add them later. I'm trying to help people get the most out of what they could probably put in. So that's my major thing and for any player out there like this guy, and I do it with guys even that I call breakouts, I'm trying to make them do it for a couple of weeks straight. I want to see some snap counts. I want to see a nice average. I look for them to make sure I track these guys in the waiver wires, and there's plenty of them. There's almost 30 of them on there right now. But to see if they hit the consistency, because if they have an MSR or matchup strength that they turn around and every time it's strong or solid, they hit it, that's great. That means you can depend on them per the matchup, back up on them. Like Grady Jared's got a really strong one this week, So he's somebody that's fell off the map. For him, though, he's not going to get a sack. He's going to get like 4 or 5 tackles. But, if you're in a deeper league, which is what I like to play and like to shoot for these guys, I'll take those 4 or 5 tackles by the time everybody frenzies and eats off the wire. I would prefer to play a player like him with a really strong matchup this week than a stud that's got a serviceable matchup at best, where they're probably barely going to hit their floor. And it happens. We see guys get shut down. So I'm not chasing this guy out of for Pepper's replacement yet. I'm going to keep my eye on him, see what he does. And you were right about Love too, but Love is more of a really small free safety. I think he's a Jordan Love. Didn't you mention him? He's always been in the mix too over the years, here and there.
Julian Love, yep.
Oh, Julian Love, yeah. He can't play up in the box. So do you shift McKinley up in the box? That might even be better.
McKinney's already. Yeah, McKinney's already getting a whole bunch of snaps. He's added near.
Oh, he's going to kill it now.
Yeah,
he's going to kill it now. If he can stay healthy, he's going to end the year well.
James, any thought on any of these guys and their situations that they now find themselves in?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this week is probably the first week all season where the turnover coming from the waiver wire, there's nothing really that I want to go and grab. And this can even go for Dirty O as well. It seems like things kind of have held steady. And, all these names, can they show up on my radar in the sense of, like Gary said, maybe if they do it for a few weeks, then I'm going to consider it. But for a weekly plug with only 2 bye weeks out there, there's nothing here. Again, deep league, sure, go ahead and grab them. But in a deep league, you're just grabbing anyone who's going to get snaps. It's not really who or why or where. You're not really strategizing there. You're just trying to fill your roster spot with playing time. So in your standard league, nothing here. Maybe Zach Cunningham comes out of nowhere for Christian Kirksey. If Kirksey goes down, maybe he returns to prominence, but that's throwing some stuff at the wall, and maybe it'll stick as opposed to actually believing that.
Yeah, and I don't trust that whole Cunningham situation. Not after this roller coaster we had, even in a deeper format. If we only got 2 teams on buys, you got a lot of people that, especially, and there's still some meat on the IDP wire right now, because we had 6 teams come back. So a lot of those guys got dropped in some, not small leagues, but just 6, 7 IDPs a piece or something like that. They're still players to grab. So I can't see reaching for Cunningham. I don't trust him. I don't think I want to put my faith into what's happened there with him. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Hewitt out there running that position instead of Cunningham.
Could be.
Yeah. I was about a week or so behind on Gary with Cunningham initially, but, I went into full overdrive and sprinted my way up, and now we're running side by side because, unless you got to throw a deep league kind of just Hail Mary, or you need to bet on variance and say, hey, maybe Cunningham can just be a stud and me and Gary are entirely wrong, then you play him. But if you're looking for any sort of floor, he's not viable along with the rest of these guys. Love is someone who, maybe he'll put together a few games and he'll show up on my radar. But right now, no one is there. They're just people who are getting playing time.
Yeah. Don't go chasing Kenny Young this week, folks. Give him a week. If you've got him, keep him on your roster if you possibly can, because he is going to have a good role. But, don't go chasing people that are questionable in their situation, coming off IR their first week, anything like that.
Sounds like, Gary, you're telling us not to go chasing waterfalls, as
Not
TLC
yet.
once said.
Make that waterfall flow for a couple of weeks,
We do have a question over on YouTube here. Mason is asking, rest of season, who is likely to be better, Von Bell or Marcus May? James, throw that one to you. Do you have any feeling one way or the other on this one?
I like May going forward. I'm very happy he came back and he played extremely well. He's kind of on my list of guys to go and add, but I'm not cutting Von Bell for him. Marcus May, could maybe give me the production and the floor that Von Bell already is giving me. Looks like the Bengals and that defense are somehow good, which, Gary and I weren't really projecting heading into this year, but they're producing well. And I don't think I want to flip May or flip Bell for May. It feels like you're kind of reinventing the wheel. Just go with your already very good, very high floor guy. And sure, maybe May hits a little bit higher of a ceiling, but it's not worth the risk to me.
If I was to get this question from a member, and if you are a member, please get a hold of me on Twitter and I'll be happy to do this for you. I would actually try to look ahead for like the next 5 games. Now, you're talking the rest of the season. That's a mighty long time to be guessing, especially because matchups do matter. So, you can look at May and maybe he has a bunch of strong and solid ones, at least how they look right now, for the rest of the season, and Bell's doesn't. But it only takes about 5 weeks, and all of a sudden, the situation changes. What teams are allowing to positions changes, so things, people get hurt in front of them or such. Like if Logan Wilson went down, heaven forbid he doesn't, but if Logan Wilson went down, Von Miller or Von Bell would just skyrocket that much more. He'd get a boost off the top, but what worries me about May is I've known him his entire career, and not personally, I wish, but he's kind of a health hazard. I think Bell has definitely got the longevity to make it through the season without, missing much. I don't trust that May will stay on the field. I think he's got a couple more games that he'll miss between now and week 16. So, but that I would stay with Bell and probably go with the Bell's ceiling and trust in Bell.
All right. And if anyone has any more questions, please let us know, and we will get to all of them that we can, especially the IDP questions. So we don't want to upset Gary too much here. But moving on, as Gary mentioned, Kenny Young, we had a trade. Interesting one. Kenny Young was traded to Denver. It was Kenny Young and I think a 7th for a 6th in 2024. They're starting to get way out there in their draft pick years traded. That leaves initially what it seems like Troy Reeder, and there were hints of Gary's favorite Ernest Jones potentially getting more playing time moving forward here. Meanwhile, in Denver, it looks like it's probably going to be Kenny Young at some point with Justin Sternad for their 2 interior linebackers. They've had a whole slew of injuries with A.J. Johnson, Josie Jewell on IR, Von Bell. There's another guy, Curtis, I think it was Robinson, had gotten hurt. Micah Kaiser, even, who they had gotten off the practice squad from the Rams, was hurt last week. They just can't keep their linebackers healthy in Denver. Gary, you had said you're not looking to pick up necessarily Kenny Young, but sort of keep an eye on him. Is that more of a he's changing teams, see how well he adapts to it, or is that matchup-based this week?
Yeah, it would definitely determine, a lot of it would be how deep this league is. I mean, in a deeper format, if I own them, I'm not going to drop them.
Right.
But, I mean, again, I'm going to go back to what I said before. Hopefully in those teams where 7 or 8 IDPs are being played, there is some type of IDP meat on the bone that you can trust a little bit more. We had a few players return last week. And like I said, there should be a slew of them this week that return. So, no, I'm not sure. I actually lost my train of thought.
Well, that's all right. We'll see if it gets back to you. James, we had talked about production by default with sort of that Rams middle linebacker. So are you trusting Reader at the moment to get that production, or do you think they're going to end up being a time split here relatively quickly between him and Jones?
I mean, I want to get defensive on you saying Ernest Jones is Gary's boy because I've come around to loving him so much. So I'm all
Fair
in
enough.
on Ernest Jones eventually. Am I all in on Ernest Jones today? No. I think Troy Reader is going to eat some snaps. He's going to hold Jones off for a little bit of time. And until he does, I don't really want to touch what's going on there. So maybe that's only a week or two. Maybe that's towards the end of the season. I'm not really sure. I like what Jones can bring to the table. I'm very interested in honing him in pretty much every dynasty I can afford him. But today, starting him, no. Starting Troy Reader, a little bit more confident for this week, but do I really want to do it? No. As Gary said, there's a lot of buys that are no longer on buys this week, so there should be a little bit more volume on your waiver wire, and there should be someone that you can just kind of trust a little bit more to have a higher floor. It's kind of a running theme, but generally with your IDPs, you don't want to go with that giant variance. You want to go with the big play guy who might get you 3 sacks, but he also might not get a tackle. You want to get that solid production. You want to get those tackles. And if you like Ernest Jones as much as we do, we think he's coming, but we don't think he's there yet. So I kind of want to avoid this situation. I think moving, Kenny means that they like what they have. And I don't think Troy Reader is the guy that they think they like. I think it's Ernest Jones. So I'm just kind of waiting for time to elapse here.
Yeah. Now, I went ahead and put Troy Reader on the waiver wire article this week, but there's no guarantee. We do track him for 3 weeks, but I put him on because he does actually have a good matchup this weekend. He should be able to get a 6, 7, 8 combined tackles. My surprise is he has it before in the past, but I'm not sure he's going to do it with 100% snaps. He might be, him and Ernest Jones will probably do a little bit of song and dance in the snaps there, 70, 30, something along those lines. But when it really boils down to it, I trust Troy Reader because of what he's done the last couple of weeks and the snaps he's got more this week than I would Kenny Young. Thinking that Kenny Young would even have it, a real chance of producing, or somebody coming off, where a lot of us are holding our breath for Jared Davis to come off the IR. Mosley's all hurt up there in New York. You got they're just decimated at the linebacker core. That Jets linebacker jinx just followed them, didn't it? Even with the new coaching staff, it's from year to year they go through this. Oh wow, but. And Jared Davis, I think we actually had him on topic tonight, but he's actually reportedly practicing. They just haven't, brought him back from the IR or designated him yet. But I think they can completely do that through the whole week or up till game time is the whole process. But we'll see. They need somebody. Hopefully Mosley gets back in there. Because if not, then people are sitting with Mosley sitting off to the side. You got to pick up somebody else off the waiver wire.
Yeah, we can cover that quick. The two sort of rookie outside guys, Hamza and Asarildine and Jamie and Sherwood are both on IR. Sherwood just tore his Achilles, I think they said. Mosley missed the game with a hamstring injury. Quincy Williams got a concussion. Blake Cashman left with a groin injury. Davis was still not back for the last game. That leaves Delshon Phillips and Noah Dawkins as the only 2 healthy linebackers on the active roster. And Dawkins, they had just signed up to the active roster. So to Gary's point, if you're looking at the Jets, it's a whole bunch of mess right now, not knowing who's going to be healthy, who's going to be playing. But there is production to be had there, as we've seen. I mean, Phillips came in unlimited snaps. He had a heck of a game for him. It really does feel like it's one of those production by default situations that you talk about where someone's going to have to get tackles there on that defense with how much they've been on the field.
Yeah. And I love Jared Davis, folks. I've already looked ahead. The rest of the season is just primed to just think about this situation with the whole some guy named White or something that's playing quarterback for him. I think
Mike White, and then they traded
Yeah.
for Joe Flacco.
It's Flacco time now.
Yeah, it's Flacco time. So either way, the rest of the season looks really good. So if Jared Davis can get back on there in 2 or 3 weeks, he'll be a really strong start, I think, for somebody really needing somebody that will give LB1 numbers. He might not be able to get you the interceptions and all of that, but I think his base tackles are going to be there. But don't put him in this week, folks. He's coming off IR. I don't care if they activate him tomorrow. Say he feels like Superman. Don't play him the first week if you don't have to. We shouldn't be that desperate to do that. So he's probably one of those players in a deep dynasty league you're going to be able to pick up now, maybe stash, or you're dropping an extra DB or something crazy like that. But if you're in a basic league or something like that, it's going to be a couple of weeks before you're even going to think about getting a waiver wire claim on him. Just keep an eye on him. He'll be of value soon.
Speaking of Gary was talking about his waiver wires, those rolling waivers you can find over at gridironratings.com. So make sure you go sign up over there. You can find ratings for James and Gary. You can find
and it's free this week.
Well, that's even better. You get a week free there.
Well, not a whole week. I apologize. This week's waiver wire article is free. My bad. Well, we're not going all crazy on the start sets. I'm sorry, folks, but the waiver wire, and there's 28 of them on there. So go to gridironratings.com. They're rolling through. I just added like 10 more today. A lot of, and I don't put them on that waiver wire unless they've got a great or solid matchup. So check it out, folks.
I was going to say, in addition to that, if you're watching us over on YouTube, and hopefully you are, please make sure you hit that like button, you subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And there's always benefits, too, to subscribing and making sure you're paying attention here, because we do have a winner, the 200th subscriber contest for Gridiron Ratings. So congratulations to Jeff Andrews, who's the winner. He gets a rest of the season Ironman subscription. That is the Dirty O, as we've talked about, and the IDP information. It's the whole shebang. So congratulations to Jeff. Please contact Gary on Twitter. You can see it in the banner, or it's under him on screen here. But congratulations, and to anyone out there that hasn't subscribed yet, please go ahead and do so on YouTube, also over on gridironratings.com if you want. But there may be some more giveaways coming up on YouTube based on subscriptions, so make sure you are subscribed.
We have some Dirty O.
I was waiting for it. So plug your ears, Gary, or go have a drink of water or something. James, how you feeling on this? Diggs and Eckler. For Kamara, I'm assuming that's Michael Thomas and Hawkinson. He would get Diggs and Eckler, and we don't know if it's dynasty or redraft. But
yeah, the same caveat to essentially every one of these questions is I need more information. What's going on here, dynasty, redraft, etc. Yep. I'm going to assume dynasty, and I'm going to assume that your waiver wire is relatively thin. So when you make this flip and you go and add someone with that additional slot because you're getting the Eckler side, you're not really getting anyone worthwhile. And I'm still making the trade. I've been all out on Michael Thomas the second he got hurt. I understand that he is the Michael Thomas, and 2 years ago he was an absolute stud, but that was 2 years ago. 2 years ago, Todd Gurley was an absolute stud. So time moves fast. Does it move as fast for wide receivers as it does for running backs? No. But do I think he's going to step in and just become an absolute dominant force? No, I don't. I think he'll be a flex play and probably a solid one. But is keeping that worth not getting Eckler and Diggs? No. Again, I don't know your tight end situation, so maybe it's a travesty after Hawkinson, and you're really going to take a big hit, and your flex positions, your running back, your wideouts are already relatively strong. But in a world where you're still starting a decently solid tight end, give me 2 over 3. I'd rather, consolidate my talent than diversify it, and Michael Thomas isn't going to be someone that I want to trust going forward. I understand that, yes, he could be a star, and he's going to have some good games, but he's not going to be consistent enough for me to just plug and play. So give me the 2 guys over 3.
I would take
Sorry,
Diggs and
Gary.
Eckler in redraft or dynasty here too, especially if in redraft based on those offenses the way they've been performing this year. That's real nice. Gary, you can come back to us now.
I was getting ready to get defensive.
Go ahead.
No. I really no. I'd take Dick's. I was just messing around.
All righty. Well, moving on back to the defense here. Gary, guy that we had talked about a little bit prior to the season, and then not much since the season started because he hasn't done much. But Jamin Davis of the Washington football team, 98% of the snaps. I think he missed one snap this past week. It's sort of a mediocre stat line. I think he had like 4 solos and an assist. Do you think this is a sign of things to come with him going more back to having at least 2 linebackers on the field instead of the 3 safeties? Or is this sort of a one-hit wonder? I'm guessing you're going to want to sit back and see what happens, but what's your read on this right now?
Yeah, definitely. What I found amazing about the snap counts of not only Davis, but Holcomb, Curl, Bobby McCain, and Collins all got nice full-time snaps this past week. They managed to keep them all on. Curl is really turning into a nice little pickup. He's made the waiver wire this week, but he's been doing it for about 3 weeks now. Davis, I think he's had one other game that he might have played close to 100% of the snaps, and then okay. And
I don't think so. He had 56 the week before, and that was his high for the season.
Okay, yeah. So definitely, I mean, hopefully we see it happen again this week, and if he produces with his matchup and everything reads out, then he'll probably. I don't think I put him. He was another one I did not put on my waiver wire list this week. I might have. I can't remember, but I would have added a note about that in the follow-up that he was just for long-term look, but I don't think I did. The hottest guy to me right now would be Curl. I like Curl. I think Curl's going to keep up and stay on the field like this for the rest of the year. And I mean, that defensive line does look a little bit better. At least Young got himself going, but there still seems to be plenty of production for everybody else. I mean, look at what Holcomb was doing. Just what Holcomb's took a step back. Folks, nothing wrong with Holcomb if he didn't have that super high ceiling he had at the beginning of the season, because Curl, Davis, all these other guys being on there, and they're good talents. They're going to start digging into that portion. There's only so much IDP meat to have each game. And it's going to get spread out a little bit more amongst some players, but I think it's going to make a nice little solid group. Bobby McCain almost made the list on the waiver wire, but I went with Curl instead. I didn't want to go with both of them.
James, how do you feel about Davis as a sit and watch type of player?
In general, I don't want any sit and watch players because I have to sit and I have to watch and I need time to happen. And I like to have that happen on the waiver wire. Now, with a guy like Jamin Davis, someone in your league is going to probably go at him. He's a hot rookie and people like that, and he's going to get added. So I'm a little more conflicted here. I think given his situation, given that Washington football team defense and what they can produce, I think that if you are going to sit and wait on someone, Jamin Davis would be a guy I am going to sit and wait on. But my general rule of thumb is no, don't wait. Use my roster spot more judiciously. And if he goes and he hits and someone else enjoys the rewards, so be it. I will have 1 week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks of rotating through trying to find someone instead of sitting and waiting. So like Gary said, there's a lot of strong IDPs there. I believe in Cameron Curl just like Gary did. Heading into this season, I wasn't so high. But now he is a guy who I think is a stud. I don't even think that he's just a nice weekly ad. I think he's going to evolve himself into a stud. And just because Jamin Davis has that first-round pedigree doesn't mean he's going to show us first-round talent this season. So he feels almost like a trap, a kind of guy that you don't want to cut because you see the potential, but he's also never going to hit on that on a weekly factor. Sure, he might do it like he did last week, but going forward, am I confident he's going to do it week after week? Absolutely not. Give me someone with more consistency. It's kind of a fallacy that I feel like a lot of fantasy players fall under. They see the talent. The talent is, in fact, there. The talent isn't producing, and we don't know when it's going to produce. And even if it does produce, we don't know when it's going to be consistent.
Let's talk about some rookie hype for a minute. Name the top 3 performing linebacker rookies.
Bolton.
Don't care.
I would say Bolton's probably one of them.
And how much has he done so far? He's not.
He's probably a top 30 player.
Yeah, he might be getting ready to tear it up for the rest of the season. But okay, who's 2? Parsons,
Pete Werner.
Warner's right there, 3 right now.
Parsons probably has it over Warner at this point, just because Parsons has played a lot more.
Yeah, give Pete a few more games here. We'll see. Yeah, he went back down to earth a little bit this week. Just had some base tackles, but he's still. I mean, he performed well enough to use. That's for sure, especially with 6 teams on bye. So, and he had 2 great outings prior to the bye. So, yeah, it's not going to take him much longer, and he's going to be up here. I guess that's what I'm saying. So let's think back. So Pete Werner was ranked like the 7th best linebacker on a lot of boards, 8th, something along that line. I think Bolton was even down that way. So all of our high guys, Parsons has been about the best out of the highest, but Collins has done nothing, and Davis has done nothing. And who's in between there? I'm missing a couple. I had Ernest a little bit too high. I admit that, but still,
WK8 actually started playing well.
Who?
Jeremiah Wusu-Cornwall before he got hurt. He had been getting quite a bit of playing time, and then he got hurt.
Yeah.
You know, I think the real question is who here has turned a profit on these guys? The late round ads, the guy like Pete Werner, who's low on a board, you've turned a profit just because the purchase price was so low. But anyone who had an actual purchase price, can you sell them at a higher profit than you could heading into the draft today? I don't know of anyone, and if there is someone, it's not many. It's why rookie hype is nothing to believe in, and I guess me and Gary can kind of sit here and smugly nod because we both agree that rookies are generally a poor investment, and right now it certainly looks that way.
Now, hey, Parsons owners took a hit second week of the year as soon as he got moved to DE. You know, that as soon as he went there, that was probably the highest stock guy out there, I would imagine. So, yes, folks, don't plan on these guys. They're luxuries if they work out.
Yeah, and I mean, to your point, it looks like Bolton is, as far as linebackers, like a top 7 guy just in pure tackles. So, I mean, he's clearly the best up there. But like you said, he was generally 5th or below at least for most people.
Which would put him down in a draft, especially a redraft.
Yeah, I mean, redraft, he probably really wasn't being drafted, I would think.
No.
So it's interesting. It always plays out differently than a lot of people expect.
Yeah.
As we're wrapping up here tonight, we'll just try to throw out one name here apiece. James, is there any name that you have semi-interest or think people might have interest in going through on a few free agent dollars off of waivers this week?
You know, as far as new emerging names that weren't around last week or the week before, there's really not much. You can look at that Jets DB backfield, you know, with Marcus May, who just showed up, and Ashton Davis, who also had, I think, 11 combined tackles. I think that those guys might be in play solely because the linebacking core is invisible for a short-term profit. But I kind of mentioned it earlier. I'll mention it again. There wasn't a lot of movement this week going from week 7 to week 8, and I feel like there's not a lot of people who've emerged who I haven't already been touting. So, yeah, you can go grab Nick Bolton, but I think everyone's going to say go grab Nick Bolton. You can go grab Anthony Walker if he's still out there. I'm not sure why, but you can grab him. Maybe David Long or Alex Singleton, but these are names we've already touched on, and they just continue to perform the way we've kind of projected them to perform. So there's not any new hot names on the block. It's all just kind of repeats of what we've already said they can and will do.
Gary, you got a name for us?
Man, I actually had like few names, but that's all right if you only want one.
Well, if you want to throw out a couple, throw out a couple.
Okay, yeah, I'm diving deep here. You know, these are probably names that you're going to have on there. Now, we've already mentioned Kroll, and I think I mentioned a couple others. Grady Jared probably is on a lot of waiver wires out there. He's not the guy he used to be, but he has another one. I think I mentioned him earlier, possibly. I'm looking at about 4 or 5 tackles this week versus Carolina. Curl, we mentioned. I think he's got the he'll hit that 8 combine. He'll probably get you a pass defended or something on top of that. You might even come off with a interception with Teddy Bridgewater in Denver. I don't know. Teddy's done some interception thing. He usually does. Doesn't he? Oh, we got a question that popped up. But either way, Xavier Woods, I like him against Dallas. That's a nice little revenge game. Dallas is actually a really strong matchup against the safeties and even the deep safeties. The way, they get the ball around there. Hopefully, I think Prescott's going to be right? So yeah, and just shook their head. So he might even surprise us with, an interception pass defended. I think he's got a ceiling of about 7 combined tackles. And then Rashawn Evans is like the ragdoll anymore because he's kind of never developed into that one guy. So he might be on your waiver wire. I think he's definitely not going to get you anything, maybe a sack, if anything. Other than I think his ceiling would be around that 8 or 9 too, combined tackles. It might be more of a 4 solo, 4 assist, but he's got the matchup. He might only do it with about 75% of the snaps, but when he's in there, he's getting the production. So, and this is strong enough for a solid enough matchup. I like him.
We always talk about when we talk about cornerbacks. Using those off of waivers, just rotating them. Gary, I think you've talked about how you've done that in one of your leagues all year long. I like to throw out one a week to people too. My pick for a cornerback to stream this week is a rookie. And cornerback is one place where rookies can be useful. Elijah Molden for Tennessee, he's gotten over a 90% snap share because of the injuries there the past 2 weeks, and he's had like 8 and 9 combined tackles with the way that Tennessee is just getting thrown against. So if you're streaming your cornerbacks, he's my pick for the week. And we have one more question. And, of course, at the end of the show, it's always got to be offense for Gary.
Yeah, just turn off the lights when you guys are done, all right?
We'll leave the light on for you, as they used to say for it was at Motel 6, I think.
Yeah.
Yep.
James, who are you picking out of? Sutton, Marvin Jones, Claypool, Julio Jones, I'm guessing, and Jerry Jeudy. He needs 2 of them this week.
That's a large crop of wide receivers who are all not super confident guys. Give me Cortland Sutton. I know, Jeudy is likely back this week, and he's going to eat into some of his share in theory, but with the rest of these guys, give me the guy who's already performing well as opposed to a guy who I'm throwing a matchup dart at. And my second one, I'm going to go with Claypool. Steelers coming off of a bye, pretty simply just where I'll lean when I have a mesh of just kind of meh. Give me the guy who's got extra rest, in theory has a game plan, and is going to be fine because Marvin Jones, Julio Jones, and Jerry Jeudy are all just as big of question marks. I know Marvin kind of went off last week, but his previous 2 weeks were basically junk. So that's where I'm going, but if you want to overrule me, just don't overrule me on Sutton.
Gary, do you have any opinion you wanted to throw out on that?
I kind of like Jug. Clark's still on IR, ain't he? I might actually go Jones Claypool.
Yeah, Chark's done for the year.
Yeah.
I think I might. I don't know.
Sutton and Claypool were my 2 initial thoughts looking at that too, for whatever it's worth. So, but anyway, thank you for the questions, everyone, tonight. Thank you for entertaining us, and hopefully we entertained you as well. James, any parting words or let people know where you can find you and find your work?
Yeah, you can find me at WhatMoney3000 on Twitter. I've definitely been slacking on posting my rankings, but if you have any sort of questions, please come to me, especially those IDP ones. I'm always happy to hop in DMs, just reply to threads, and just be a voice if you need a voice. You don't have to listen to me, but I'll help you talk it through.
And Gary, anything you wanted to go over for parting words this week? Of course, we know where to find you in your office over at gridironratings.com.
I just want to wish everybody the best of luck to make your decisions real soon on how you're going to complete the rest of this year. It goes right off of what James has started off with, to making the right decisions right now if you decide you're going to make that run for the playoffs. So we're halfway through until playoffs. It's time to make sure that you look ahead. I suggest everybody kind of look at matchups going forward on those players that you're deciding to lock yourself down on, because I think there's going to be a lot of what we would consider normally LB2 type guys. It's all of a sudden going to pop up the second half. And then we're going to see some of the ones that have been really getting it, they're going to kind of die off a little bit. And that's going to affect on how the rest of the season goes for these teams that are 50-50. I think that we'll see a lot of 50-50 teams come up real quick and make the playoffs.
And remember to tune in on Thursday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern. The Packers receiving core may not be there for you, but Gary, JJ Wenner, and Dynasty Trip will be on going over the sort of late in the week news and any questions that you guys have about sit starts, waiver claims, anything like that. So make sure you tune in for that. But from all of us here, thank you and have a great night.